She asked me to help her move into her first apartment. I took the day off work, rented a truck, even brought tools and blankets. Everything a proud father would do. I sat outside her place for hours, engine running, heart full. And then I got the text. Mom said it was better if her boyfriend helped. No apology. No explanation. Just that. I didn't respond. I didn't drive home either. I drove to the storage unit. The one where I kept all the pieces of her life I'd been saving for this exact moment. If she didn't want my help, fine. But I wasn't about to let her pretend I hadn't shown up. Not this time. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you're watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. I took the day off work. That might not sound like a big deal to most people, but when you've worked the same warehouse job for 13 years without ever missing a shift unless you were damn near bleeding from the eyes, it means something. I clocked out the night before with a weird kind of pride in my chest, pride and anticipation. I even told my manager, my daughter's moving into her first place tomorrow. Big day for her. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Enjoy it, man. That's the stuff that matters." Yeah, that's what I thought too. I rented the truck the night before, a U-Haul with a lift gate because I remembered her saying her new bed frame was heavy. She didn't ask me to get it. She mentioned it once, offhand, during one of our last calls. But I remembered. I always remembered the things she didn't even know she needed help with. I drove it home, parked it in the driveway like I was staging for something important. Loaded a handcart, some moving blankets, even grabbed that old set of Allen wrenches she used to play with as a kid when I fixed stuff around the apartment. Funny how things circle back around. I got up early, made coffee I didn't drink, just held the mug in my hands like it might warm up the rest of me. I kept checking my phone. No new messages, but she had sent me the address a few days ago, her old place, where she lived with a couple roommates. I plugged it into my GPS, left an hour early. Because being early meant something to me. Meant I cared. Meant I was reliable. The street was quiet when I pulled up. A couple of cars parked at odd angles, some college kid energy still clinging to the sidewalk. I turned off the engine, but didn't get out. I figured I'd wait until I saw her come out. I didn't want to embarrass her in front of whoever might still be home. She was 22 now, freshly graduated, working some entry-level design job that she got all on her own, and she made it clear, subtly, but clearly, that she wanted to do things her way now. I was okay with that. I just wanted to be part of it. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I shot her a quick text. "Hey kiddo, I'm out front with the truck. Let me know when you're ready." No response. I wasn't worried. I figured she was still packing. I scrolled through the weather forecast, checked the news, even flipped through some photos on my phone. The one from her high school graduation where she's laughing and her arm is slung around my neck. That one always hit me. Always reminded me of when we used to be a team. I waited an hour. Then another. Eventually, I got out and knocked on the door. No answer. I tried calling twice. Straight to voicemail. My chest started tightening. Not like a heart attack. More like the way shame feels when it seeps in slow, like smoke under a door. And then, just as I was about to call again, my phone buzzed. It was a text. Just one line. Mom said it was better if her boyfriend helped. That was it. No apology. No explanation. No, "Thanks for taking the day off," or "Sorry I didn't let you know sooner." Just a message that cracked something open inside me. I stared at the screen for a long time. I read the text again. And again. My hands started shaking. Barely, but enough to make me put the phone down on the truck's dashboard. I could feel something between anger and heartbreak bubbling up. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just final. I put the truck in drive. I didn't think. I didn't call her back. I didn't reply to the message. I just drove, not toward home, but toward the storage unit. Because whether or not she needed me, I had the key. The storage unit was about 20 minutes away, tucked behind a strip of old buildings with peeling paint and a tire shop that always smelled like burned rubber. I had taken her there once when she was 15, when we moved out of the duplex I couldn't afford after the divorce. Back then, it felt like we were salvaging what little we had. I remembered how she hugged the box with her stuffed animals in it, told me, "Dad, I don't want to leave these here. What if they get cold? God, that hit me like a brick at the time. I told her they'd be fine, that they'd just be napping for a while, like a long sleepover. She smiled at that, even if her eyes were wet. So yeah, I remembered that place. I remembered everything. I pulled in, punched in the code, and drove the truck around to the back row where Unit 208 stood, faded red numbers barely clinging to the metal. I unlocked it and rolled up the door, and there it was, everything I had stored for her. Boxes labeled in my handwriting, books, kitchen stuff, miscellaneous, dorm, and one that just said soft things. Her old comforter, a microwave I bought secondhand but cleaned so well it looked new, pots and pans I picked up from a discount outlet after her graduation party. I even kept the string lights she liked, the ones from her college dorm she left behind. I stood there for a moment, just staring. My hands hung by my sides, fingers twitching. I wasn't mad. Not exactly. It was more like numb. Like I had reached a limit I didn't know I had. Then I started loading. Not because she asked. Not because she deserved it. Because I needed to do something. Anything to stop myself from spiraling into that place where all the memories come back and you start asking yourself where it went wrong. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I made her feel like she owed me something. Maybe I was clinging too tightly to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. I packed every box with care. No slamming. No tossing. Just silence and sweat and a tightness in my throat I refused to acknowledge. By the time everything was in the truck, I sat on the tailgate and just breathed. In, out, in again. My phone buzzed, but I didn't look. I knew it wasn't her. She'd said what she needed to say. Mom said it was better if her boyfriend helped. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. Hell, I didn't even know she still talked to her mother. Last I heard, they were barely on speaking terms after an ugly argument the previous Christmas. But I guess things change when they decide you're the problem. When they rewrite the past in a way that suits them. Her mom had always said I tried to control too much, that I needed to let go. Easy for her to say. She let go of everything, including us, the minute things got hard. I sat there for a while longer. A couple of people passed by, one of them nodding politely. I nodded back. Nobody asked why I was there. Nobody needed to. Eventually, I stood up and closed the truck. The plan had changed, I guess. No apartment greeting. No warm thank you. No father-daughter picture standing proudly next to a stack of half-unpacked boxes. Just me, a half-tank of gas, and the decision I was about to make. I was going to her apartment anyway. Not out of spite. Not even out of pride. But because those boxes didn't belong in storage anymore. I wasn't going to be her backup plan. The man she calls when the boyfriend flakes, or the lease falls through, or the stove won't light. If she wanted to cut me out, she could, but I wasn't going to let her pretend I didn't show up. I drove the truck with a calm kind of fury. Not reckless, just steady. My hands were loose on the wheel, but my jaw was clenched so tight it ached. Every red light felt like a test. Every turn of the GPS like it was dragging me closer to something final. And when I finally pulled up to the new place, an apartment complex with clean stucco and tiny balconies, I saw them. Her and him. They were laughing, carrying a box between them. She looked happy. Not the forced kind either. The real kind. She didn't even see me at first. Then she did. Our eyes met. Her face dropped. She said something to him. He looked at me too, confused, and then she walked over. Arms crossed. Chin lifted like she was ready for a fight. Dad, what are you doing here? I looked at her, really looked at her. And I saw it. The distance. Not just physical. The years of growing apart, of missed calls and unspoken resentments, of her becoming someone I didn't recognize. I brought your stuff, I said. Simple. Flat. She glanced at the truck, then back at me. I told you I didn't need you to. No, I said slowly. You told me your mom said your boyfriend should help. You didn't say anything. She sighed. I just didn't want this to be a thing. I laughed. Not loudly. Just a quiet, bitter sound. A thing? You mean like taking off work, renting a truck, and sitting outside for 2 hours without so much as a call? Dad, you could have said no, I said, cutting her off. You could have told me straight up, hey, I'm good. I've got help. But you didn't. You let me make plans. You let me hope. She looked away, toward the guy still standing near the building, awkward and unsure. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Well, I said, stepping back toward the truck, mission failed. She didn't follow me, didn't say sorry, just stood there like the weight of the moment was too heavy and she didn't know how to carry it. I opened the back of the truck, started unloading. She didn't offer to help. The boyfriend did. Want me to grab a box? He asked, stepping forward. I shook my head. I got it. And I did. Every single one. I set them down on the sidewalk outside her building. Not inside. Not at the door. Just on the pavement like offerings at a shrine no one believed in anymore. When I was done, I walked back to the truck. She finally spoke. I didn't mean for this to get so complicated. I turned and looked at her, and I said something I didn't plan. Something that came from the part of me I usually keep locked up. It's only complicated when you pretend people don't exist until you need something. She blinked. That landed. Maybe not all the way, but enough. I climbed into the truck, started the engine, and pulled away. No hug. No thank you. Just silence behind me, and the sound of the truck rattling under the weight of everything we never said. I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. The truck felt too empty, and the silence inside it was suffocating. The boxes were gone, sure, but their weight hadn't left me. It was still lodged in my chest, like a thick knot of everything I wanted to say but couldn't. I ended up pulling into the parking lot of a rundown diner on the edge of town. The kind of place with sticky menus, a jukebox that hadn't worked since Bush was president, and coffee that tasted like hot asphalt. I slid into a booth, stared at the laminated menu without reading it, and finally just ordered a black coffee and some eggs I didn't touch. The waitress called me Han twice. I nodded. I didn't have the energy to smile. The truth is, I was ashamed. Not angry, not really. Shame sits deeper than anger. It burrows in and makes you question who you are and what you've been doing all these years. I sat there stirring that god-awful coffee and thought about all the times I showed up, for birthdays, for doctor's appointments, for college tours, for every stupid little milestone that nobody else seemed to care about. And now, I was the problem. The guy who made things complicated. The one they whispered about. I pulled out my phone and opened the gallery. I don't know why. I guess I needed to remind myself that those years were real, that I hadn't imagined the bond we once had. There was one photo, in particular, I couldn't stop looking at. Her 5th birthday. She was in this lopsided paper crown she made at preschool, chocolate frosting on her nose, sitting in my lap while I held the cake. She had one hand on my face like she was keeping me from looking away. Even then, she wanted to be seen. I must have stared at that photo for 15 minutes before I finally got up and left. I didn't even finish the coffee. I drove back to the storage facility, partly because I needed to return the key to the front desk, but mostly because I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there. Something left unsaid. Something left behind. When I opened the unit again, I was right. There was one box I'd missed. It was shoved in the back corner, half covered by a moving blanket. No label. Just a plain brown box with tape that had started to curl. I knelt beside it and peeled it open, not sure what I expected. What I found was a gut punch. Old sketchbooks. Dozens of them. Some with faded covers, some still pristine. Doodles from her middle school years. Pages of messy pencil drawings. Cartoon girls, landscapes, little scenes she dreamed up before she ever took an art class. One page had a picture of a tall figure in a baseball cap, holding the hand of a tiny girl with pigtails. The caption in crayon said, "Me and Daddy going to the moon." I sat down right there on the cold concrete floor and flipped through those pages like I was handling sacred scripture. So many of them were unfinished. Half-drawn faces, empty speech bubbles, outlines without color. I guess that's what got me the most. How much of it felt incomplete. Like she was always in the middle of becoming something, but never let me see where it led. I found a folder tucked in between 2 sketch pads. Inside were college acceptance letters, a couple of rejection ones too. But what stopped me cold was a short letter addressed to me. Folded, never sent. Written maybe 3 years ago, based on the date. Dad, I don't know how to say this to your face, so I'm writing it here. Sometimes I feel like I owe you too much. Like I can't breathe without wondering if I've disappointed you. I know you mean well. I know you love me. But I need to figure out who I am without you fixing everything all the time. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh. I don't want to be ungrateful. I love you. I do. I'm just scared I'll lose myself if I keep trying to make you proud. I sat there for a long time. I don't even remember breathing. My heart felt like it had been twisted up and wrung out. Because in that moment, I saw it. The gap between us hadn't just appeared overnight. It had been growing, silently, in the spaces where I thought I was helping. Every time I rushed in to fix something, to smooth out the rough edges of her life, I thought I was protecting her. But maybe I was also making her feel small. Like she couldn't handle things on her own. Like I didn't trust her to grow. I closed the folder, placed it back in the box, and sat there with my elbows on my knees, staring at the concrete. The hum of the overhead lights was the only sound. That's when I heard a voice. Need help with anything? I looked up. A guy about my age, maybe a little younger, was standing a few feet away. Tall, thin, with a storage facility lanyard around his neck. He had the kind of face that had seen its share of hard years. Crow's feet, tired eyes, but still kind. I shook my head, just picking through old ghosts. He smiled softly. Aren't we all? He didn't press, just nodded and turned to leave. But before he did, he glanced back and said, "Sometimes the stuff we leave behind tells the truth better than the stuff we carry with us." That stuck with me. After he left, I sat for another few minutes before sealing the box and carrying it back to my truck. This time, I wasn't going to drop it at her apartment. I wasn't going to force it into her hands. I was going to keep it, not to guilt her, not to hold on to something that wasn't mine anymore, but because it reminded me that, once upon a time, we really had something worth mourning. When I finally pulled into my driveway that night, the sun was already down. I parked the truck and just sat there, engine off, darkness all around me. I could still feel the outline of that letter in my pocket. Her voice, her handwriting, still so young, so unsure, but honest. I thought about texting her, just to say I found it, just to tell her I understood. But I didn't. Because maybe understanding meant letting her go a little, letting her find her own way, even if that meant being left out of the journey. I took the box inside and slid it under my bed. Not because I was holding on to the past, but because I wasn't ready to bury it just yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not well anyway. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the box of her memories under me like a foundation I hadn't asked for. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face outside that apartment. The way her arms folded, the shift in her expression when she saw me, like my presence was a problem to be managed instead of a welcome surprise. By morning, my chest ached, not from heartbreak this time, but from resolve. I knew what I had to do. There were still a few things left in my garage. Odds and ends I hadn't managed to get into the truck. A set of dishes I bought new just for her place. A coffee maker she'd picked out at Target last spring when she was dreaming about apartment mornings. And a small toolbox I'd pre-packed with the essentials: wrench, screwdriver, level, tape measure. I'd written her name on the side in thick Sharpie. She didn't ask for any of it. But that was the point. I always thought ahead, always anticipated the need before she knew she had won. But that was the problem, wasn't it? I loaded everything into the back of my pickup. No ceremony, no playlist, no lingering hope that this would somehow bring us back together. This time, I just wanted clarity. I didn't text her, didn't call. I figured if she was fine letting me sit outside for 2 hours the other day, then she'd be fine with me dropping by unannounced. Fair was fair. It was just past noon when I pulled into the lot. Same apartment complex, clean sidewalks, recycled beige paint on the walls, a few potted succulents hanging from balconies. It had that cookie-cutter charm, the kind of place where everything looked nice enough to be impressive but forgettable. The kind of place you outgrow once you start living for real. I parked the truck and sat for a minute, looking up at her balcony. I didn't know which one was hers, not exactly, but I had a hunch. The third floor, far enough to feel above it all, but not too far to jump if you needed an escape. I grabbed the last of her things and carried them up. No hesitation, no knocking on the door. I left them right outside the threshold, stacked neatly, with the toolbox on top. And just as I was turning to leave, the door opened. There she was, hair tied up, tank top and leggings, barefoot. She looked surprised. Not scared. Not guilty. Just caught. "Dad." I nodded once. "Just dropping off the rest of your stuff." She glanced at the boxes, then at me. Her mouth opened, then closed again. like she didn't know where to start. You didn't have to. But I did. I interrupted, not angry, just final. Because I'm the kind of man who finishes what he starts. She flinched a little at that. Good. I wanted her to feel something. Anything other than detached indifference. I was going to come by and get the rest, she said, arms folded, voice defensive. I just haven't had time. I nodded slowly. Right? Too busy with your boyfriend. She sighed, annoyed. Don't do that. Do what? I asked. Speak plainly. Call things what they are. This is exactly why I didn't want to make it a big deal, she snapped. You always turn things into a guilt trip. I took a step forward, just enough to close the emotional distance. My voice stayed calm, but steady. You left me sitting outside your place for 2 hours. I took the day off work. I rented a truck. You didn't call. You didn't text until you needed to pass the blame onto your mother. Her eyes narrowed. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said. And you know it. There was a long pause. The air between us was thick with history, old wounds, old words. All the moments we both swallowed down for years because it was easier than dealing with the truth. Then she said something that cracked the whole damn moment wide open. Mom said you'd make this about you. I stared at her, stunned. I opened my mouth, closed it, then finally found my words. Is that what you think this is? About me? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. Broke. But not in the way it used to. Not in that self-blaming, spiral down the drain kind of way. This time, it broke clean. I shook my head, not angry now. Just tired. I've spent the last 22 years trying to be everything your mother wasn't. Showing up. Fixing what broke. Building what she left behind. Not because I needed credit, but because you deserved better. But if all that makes me too much, if showing up makes me the villain in some story she's been spinning, then maybe I've been wasting my breath. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just looked small, like the truth didn't sit as comfortably as the version of me her mother kept alive. The boyfriend came to the door then, barefoot too, holding a mug of coffee like he walked into a movie halfway through. His voice was quiet. Everything okay? She glanced back at him, then at me. I stepped away from the boxes. You're good now. You've got help. You've got advice. You've got distance. Congratulations. Then I paused. I just hope one day, when someone makes you feel like you're too much, you remember who never said that about you. And I walked away, down the stairs, past the manicured bushes, back into my truck, where the dashboard light blinked like it was trying to distract me. I sat there for a minute before pulling away, and when I looked back, she was still standing in the doorway, watching me go. It didn't take long. By the time I got home and put the keys on the hook, my phone buzzed again. Not her. Not even her mother. It was my sister, Deb. If there was ever a woman with a radar for family drama, it was Deb. She had a sixth sense for when the air shifted, when a silence meant something, when someone's tone changed by even half a note. She wasn't nosy in the loud way. She didn't pry or poke. But she watched. She noticed. I let the phone ring the first time. I needed a moment to put the kettle on, sit down, and process the weight of what I'd just said on that apartment landing. The heat in my chest hadn't cooled yet, and I wasn't ready to dissect it under her microscope. But she called again. Less than 5 minutes later. So I answered. Hey, I said. You okay? She didn't even say hello. Just straight to it. Yeah, I lied. You sure? Because I got a weird message from her. Of course she did. I closed my eyes. What did she say? That you showed up unannounced at the apartment and made a scene in front of her boyfriend. I let out a short, hollow laugh. Did she also mention that she left me waiting outside her old place for 2 hours with a rented truck I paid for? Silence. Then no. She didn't mention that part. I got up and started pacing. The kettle hissed quietly in the background, building steam. She also didn't mention the fact that I unloaded her whole life onto that sidewalk like a damn delivery man. I added, no thanks. No apology. Just a confirmation that her mother's been in her ear poisoning the well. Deb sighed. I could hear her lighting a cigarette, something she only did when she was overwhelmed. You want my honest opinion? I stopped walking. No, but I know you're going to give it anyway. You showed up with good intentions. But you're not just dealing with her anymore. You're dealing with 2 decades of divorce fallout she's only just starting to understand. I frowned. So what? I'm supposed to accept being iced out without saying a word? No, she said calmly. But maybe stop showing up like you're the only one who knows how to love right. That stung. Hard. I wanted to argue. I really did. But something in me knew she wasn't wrong. Not completely. I had made my identity about showing up. About being the parent who never missed a beat. But that didn't mean I got to dictate how or when I was needed. I feel erased, Deb, I admitted. Like I gave so much of myself trying to keep her from breaking that I forgot she might want to break a little. On her own. Deb was quiet for a beat. Then she said softly, maybe you didn't forget. Maybe you just couldn't stand to watch. That night, I didn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't guilt. It was grief. Not the kind that knocks you over all at once. The kind that creeps in slowly, like a house settling. The realization that something has shifted and it's not going back to the way it was. The next morning, I made coffee, checked my messages, and saw it. A photo, posted to her Instagram. Her, the boyfriend. A caption that said, first place. First day. First love. Couldn't have done it without you. That last sentence twisted like a knife. Couldn't have done it without you. Not a word about the furniture. Not a mention of the dishes. Not a single nod to the man who'd carried her first box of art supplies in his storage a decade ago, when she didn't even know what she wanted to be yet. I didn't like the way it made me feel. So I closed the app. I threw my phone on the couch. I told myself to let it go. But letting go? That's not something I was built for. A few hours later, someone knocked on my door. I opened it, and there was Marcus, my tenant from the upstairs unit. Young guy, mid-30s. Works remote, drinks green juice, always polite but quiet. He held out a six-pack. I figured you might want this. Saw the truck yesterday. Didn't look like it ended how you expected. I laughed, even though it wasn't funny. You got good instincts. He sat on my porch with me while we drank 2 beers in silence. Finally, he said, you know, my dad did the same thing when I moved out. Showed up with a bunch of stuff I didn't ask for. Tools. Rugs. A toolbox I didn't even know how to use yet. Let me guess, I said. You told him thanks but didn't really mean it. Marcus shook his head. I didn't say thanks at all. I told him to back off. Told him I needed space. We didn't talk for almost a year. I looked over at him. You regret that? Yeah, he said simply. I do now. But I didn't back then. I felt smothered. Like he didn't trust me to figure it out on my own. But I see now that he was trying to stay useful. That it wasn't about control. It was about love. I stared out at the lawn. Wind rustling through the dry leaves. The world moving on, indifferent. She thinks I'm trying to control her. I said. Maybe you are, he said, a little. But maybe she'll figure that out the way I did. And if she doesn't? Marcus shrugged. Then at least you'll know you showed up. That's more than most dads can say. He stood, left the rest of the beers on the step, and clapped me on the shoulder. After he left, I sat there for a long time, thinking about what it meant to be a parent when your child no longer needed you. When showing up stopped being enough and started being too much. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. But I did pull that folder back out from under the bed, the one with her letter, and I read it again, word for word. And this time, I didn't feel angry. I felt seen. It had been a week. 7 days since I'd stood on that concrete stairwell and told her exactly what I thought. Since I left her things and walked away. And for 7 days, there was nothing. No texts. No calls. Not even a comment beneath the Instagram post she shared. Just friends and strangers hearting it, praising the new life she was building. I kept checking, against my better judgment, waiting to see if someone would mention me. If she'd reply to a comment with a quiet acknowledgement that her father had shown up. She didn't. And I realized something around day 3. I'd taught her how to be self-sufficient, how to stand on her own. But I hadn't taught her how to be grateful. That part was on me. It was the 4th time I opened the cabinet for a mug and instinctively reached for the one I'd packed for her that I decided I wasn't done. Not in the bitter, retaliatory kind of way, but in a way that said, my time is worth something. My effort is not disposable, and I won't leave pieces of myself lying around where I'm not wanted. So I made a list. The couch, the bookshelf, the TV stand I had built myself with stained pine boards, and a level I double-checked 3 times. The Wi-Fi account still under my name. The dishes. And yes, The goddamn coffee maker she said she couldn't wait to use every morning. I gave her a day to respond to my message. I'll be by tomorrow at 5 to pick up the items I purchased and moved for you. If they're not on the curb, I'll assume you want to talk in person. She read it. No reply. So the next day, I showed up. This time, I brought a buddy. A guy from work named Miguel. Good guy, quiet, but solid. I told him I needed a hand picking up furniture from a place that didn't respect me anymore. He didn't ask questions. We pulled in at 4:59 p.m. And there it was, nothing on the curb. No stacked boxes. No moving blankets or notes saying, "Thanks, Dad." Just an empty walkway, like nothing had happened. I knocked. Harder than I meant to. She opened the door a few seconds later. Her face was tired. She looked like she hadn't slept either. And for the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not just annoyance or defiance. She looked lost. But I didn't soften. "I'm here for my things," I said. "Dad." "No," I said. "You don't get to dad me now." Miguel stood behind me silently. She glanced at him, then back at me. "You really want to do this?" "You already did," I said. "When you decided I didn't matter until it was convenient." That landed. She stepped aside. I walked in. Miguel followed. The apartment looked lived in now. Not like before, when boxes still lined the walls. The couch was where I imagined it. My couch. So was the bookshelf I built with hands that still ached from a lifetime of lifting. I pointed. That, and that. She watched us work for a few minutes before finally breaking. "I didn't think you'd actually do this," she said. "Yeah," I said, wrapping the TV stand in a blanket. "You didn't think I'd do a lot of things. I just wanted space. And I gave it to you," I said. "But you used that space to rewrite history." She didn't argue. Miguel and I carried everything down, load by load. She didn't stop us. Didn't cry. She just stood there with her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold in everything she'd never said. The last thing I unplugged was the router. She flinched. "You're taking the internet." "I'm taking my name off things that don't serve me anymore." Silence. I walked to the door. Miguel was already by the truck. But I paused. She stood there, frozen in the middle of her half-furnished apartment. And I said, "I don't want an apology. Not yet. But someday, you're going to sit in this room and realize what was missing. And it won't be the couch." Her lips parted like she wanted to speak. But I walked away. Back home, I unloaded everything. I didn't put it all back in place. Not right away. Some of it stayed in the garage. But the coffee maker? I put it right back where it belonged. Filled it with water. Ground the beans. Let the aroma fill the space I used to think of as just mine, but now I reclaimed entirely. And that night, I slept. Not because it was over, but because I was finally done being erased. 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from her. Not a word. And I didn't reach out either, not out of spite, but out of clarity. There's a difference. Spite is loud and brittle, born from wounded pride. But clarity? That's quiet. That's the kind of silence that doesn't ache anymore. The kind that lets you sit in your own house, sip your coffee, and not flinch every time your phone buzzes. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hoping for a dramatic apology or some late-night voicemail where she sobs and begs for forgiveness. I didn't want groveling. I just wanted honesty. Real, unfiltered acknowledgement that something broke between us, not overnight, but piece by piece over the years, and that I wasn't the only one holding the hammer. In the meantime, the furniture fit back into my life like it never left. Funny how that works. The couch looked better in my den. The bookshelf made more sense in the hallway, stocked now with books I actually read. I even found myself smiling when I brewed coffee in the mornings. Not because I was happy, at least not in the usual way, but because I'd taken something back. Not the stuff. Myself. Then, one Thursday night, it happened. A knock on the door. Late, just past 10. Not frantic, but steady. I almost didn't answer. Thought maybe it was a neighbor or Miguel dropping something off. But something told me. Deep down, in that quiet, parental intuition you never quite lose, that it was her. And it was. She looked different. Tired. Not in the dramatic, movie scene way, but in the way people look when they've been holding something in too long and it's finally starting to crack. Her shoulders weren't squared. Her chin wasn't lifted like before. She wasn't performing this time. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. said nothing. Let her enter the space she used to call home. She sat on the edge of the couch I'd taken back, and looked down at her hands for a long time before speaking. I saw you took the internet. I raised an eyebrow. You came here to complain about the Wi-Fi? She almost smiled. No. It was the first time it really hit me. That you weren't bluffing. I stayed standing. I wanted her to feel the shift. The new terms. She looked up at me. I know I hurt you. Silence. I didn't mean to make you feel like you didn't matter. More silence. I didn't know how to ask for space without feeling like I was betraying you. And I guess, in a way, I did betray you. Now we were getting somewhere. I wanted my life to feel like mine, she said, voice cracking just a little. But instead of talking to you about it, I let Mom rewrite the story. I let her turn it into something ugly, and I didn't stop her. I finally sat. Not close. Just enough to say I'm listening. She swallowed hard. You've always been the parent who stayed. The one who never flinched. I think I took that for granted. I figured you'd always just be there. That's the problem, I said quietly. You didn't just take me for granted. You erased me. She nodded, eyes shining. I know. I waited. Let her sit in that truth. I'm not asking you to forget it, she said, or even forgive me right now, but I'm asking if we can start fixing it. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. I didn't rush in to hug her. Didn't spout off a long speech about unconditional love. I just leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and said, we fix it on my terms now. She nodded, understanding. Okay. You call before you show up. You speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And you stop acting like I'm just the backup plan for when things go wrong. Okay. And you don't get to ask me for anything until we rebuild what we lost. Not gifts. Not help. Not a damn dime. Tears slid down her cheeks now, slow and quiet. Okay, she whispered again. That was enough for now. She stood, wiped her face, and asked if she could hug me. I didn't answer with words. I just stood, and we held each other for the first time in months. Not like the old days. Not like nothing had happened. But like something new was starting. Something honest. After she left, I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. I just sat in the same spot and breathed. And I thought about all the lines we draw in life. Some are made in anger, some in desperation. But the strongest lines, the ones that hold, are drawn from knowing your worth. And this time, I didn't draw that line to push her away. I drew it to protect what was left of me. Have you ever had to reclaim your space after someone took your presence for granted? If you've drawn a line, quietly or loudly, we want to hear how it changed you. Drop your story in the comments, and let others know they're not alone in learning how to stop apologizing for showing up too much.